Yes, welcome into Sportsbet Betting Insight today. Pauly and Teddy, weekend preview edition. The game three's coming up in the association. Cubs and Giants tonight. We'll hit that in big game breakdown. 5 great minutes with Brian Blessing. We'll preview the Preakness and the play of the day. We start with a moose, Teddy, a big-time moose in the playoff game last night. Looking at the total from the whole way, from the first quarter to the early fourth quarter, the in-running total was higher than the pregame total. We're sitting on 197 with 124 left in the game. All we need's a basket, and then the shenanigans started.
Yeah, it wasn't through the early part of the fourth quarter. I mean, literally from about, I think it was about the 8-minute mark of the first quarter. Maybe it was a 6-minute mark. Through the final minute of the fourth quarter, throughout, the in-game running total was higher than the pregame total. You know, it closed 197.5, 198, was 198.5 earlier in the day. So they get to $1.97 with 124 left. All you need is one bucket. You need a free throw to get a push. And then this happened. Take a look at this graphic. And it wasn't like it was a situation where they were dribbling out the clock. You were complaining about Ross the other night dribbling out the clock. Here, they're playing at a frenetic pace. It's garbage time. There's a minute left in a playoff game. You got 5 shots in 40 seconds. None of them fall. No free throws. Both teams are in the bonus. No free throws. And then it ends up dribbling out the clock. Game stays under by the hook.
Both teams that get dribbled out the clock. I don't get that. I don't understand it. And Johnson missed a bunny, too, with about 1:20 left.
I know. I had the over in my pocket. It was a little bit frustrating, more than a little bit, But, look, we got that picture of the moose, and this is going to be our running picture of the moose moving forward. I thought this was a pretty good moose picture. Yeah, this was a moose. Of course, if you had the Raptors, that wasn't really a right side either. Toronto, they've been getting outclassed in this series pretty bad.
Yeah, there it is. Good to start with a moose. Another tough beat. Another game dies in the NBA playoffs. Bad bet. The Cubs bet from $1.55 up to $2. They lose. Brewers get them.
Yeah, and of course the markets will move on guys who are sitting. Ryan Braun was sitting. Jonathan LaCroix was sitting for Milwaukee. So the markets go nuts, pounding the Cubs. And what happens? Hey, how about Junior Guerrera now? He's 3-0 with a 3.96. He struck out 11. He only allowed 5 hits. And, of course, we've been talking about the Cubs a lot on this show this year because they were probably the biggest story in Major League Baseball through the first quarter of the campaign. Well, those bats have gone cold now, Pauly. They scored 3 runs or less in 5 of their last 7. They didn't miss Kyle Schwarber early. Remember that Schwarber injury? Was it opening day or the day after? You kind of wonder if they missed that big bat right now when everyone else seems to be slumping.
Yeah, I'd be concerned about the offense, so I'm with you on that one. Certainly they could use some help there, and maybe they can make a move later down the road. This is a bad beat. The most famous sports bettor in the world, Billy Walters, indicted for insider trading. Probably the first time in 40 years he's an underdog here. He's in a world of hurt.
Well, I mean, Walters was a dog. I mean, he's faced the feds, 3 times before? And he's been a dog. He was a dog in at least one of those, for sure. This time it's obviously very, very serious. Billy Walters, if you don't know the story, he's a guy from Kentucky who came out to Las Vegas in the late 70s, early 80s, and literally became the most successful sports bettor in the world. Ran a syndicate and has run afoul of the feds more than once. Well, what's this one? Insider trading. He was arrested by the FBI here in Vegas, released from custody on Thursday on a $1 million bond. Needed 100,000 cash security. Had to forfeit his passport and all of his weapons, Pauly. And yes, if you were wondering, that 100K was brought in by a runner that handed it to the judge in a paper bag. No, I'm kidding. That's not how it got paid. That's how the debts get paid. But of course, the story is that he's buddies with a guy who is the chairman of Dean Foods, and the guy from Dean Foods owes him money. And instead of giving him the money, he gives him quote-unquote insider trading tips. And Walters made a profit of, I think, $32 million while avoiding losses of $11 million. But here's the beauty of it. Okay, I mean, there's 2 beauties of this story. One is that when the 2 guys were talking about the Dean Foods, the company that they were making all this money off of, they would refer to the company as the Dallas Cowboys. So it gives a new meaning to how about them Cowboys? And of course, yeah, the lawyer's quotes are just great. I love this one. This is from Billy Walters' attorney, Barry Burke. Quote, Billy Walters is a true American success story. true American success story, whose extraordinary accomplishments as a lawful sports gambler have been widely recognized and lauded. Mr. Walters' renowned work ethic and many other talents have also helped him achieve great success in business, investing, and philanthropy. Mr. Walters and his counsel look forward to his day in court. Will it be shown the prosecutor's accusations are based on erroneous assumptions, speculative theories, and false finger-pointing? Maybe he's a dog. I don't know if he's a huge dog in this one.
Oh, come on. Come on.
Tape.
It's like, that guy's testifying against him. It's all over.
Let's just put it this way. Billy Walters will be well represented by his attorneys. That's
I'll tell you. Well, also why it's getting a lot of attention is because Phil Mickelson's part of it. Phil Mickelson made $900,000.
Mickelson was not indicted
yeah.
With any of this stuff, but he's another one of Billy Walters' buddies who allegedly had some success trading stocks to pay off Walters from some gambling.
Yes, $900,000 he made, and the part of that story is that he owed Walters a ton of money because they were gambling, probably on the golf course. Interesting, last week with the timing, David Ferry, the golf analyst, was asked who's the best pressure putter he's ever seen. You thought he'd say Jack, Tiger, somebody like that? He said Billy Walters. Think about that. So that's why, Walters is up so much money on Mickelson. All right, very cool here yesterday in Las Vegas at the Golden Nugget. They came out with their college football win totals. They did 24 teams. And if you look at this graphic, we can run a few down. But we start at the top. Clemson, Florida State, Tennessee, and Oklahoma at 10. LSU, Michigan, Bama, 9.5. Well, first thing jumps out to me is I think they're telling you that a very good chance that a two-loss team makes the college football playoff this upcoming season.
Well, we talked about how much a half win is worth in the NFL. A half win is worth about 50 cents a juice. So a team that's lined at 8.5, even money. If you're betting the over, it's the moral equivalent of betting that same team lined at 8 at minus 150. In college football, a half win, depending on the schedule, it can be worth $2 worth of juice. It really can. When you look at a lot of these schedules, particularly the Clemson and Florida State from one of the weaker strong conferences in college football, there aren't a whole lot of games these teams are going to lose, even in a worst case scenario. So a half win means a lot. Now remember, 10 wins, it's only a 12-game regular season. That means they got to win 11, for you to cash your over bet on these squads. And certainly Tennessee stands out like a sore thumb. We haven't seen the Vols line this high in many, many years, but it also telling us that Tennessee is likely to be well regarded by the lines makers, Pauly, once college football starts. We've already seen signs of that with those games of the year lines. But what about Michigan being lined higher than a full win, higher than Ohio State, being lined higher than Michigan State? The Wolverines, maybe the team to beat in the Big Ten this year.
Yep. Michigan State at 8 surprised me, and Ohio State at 8.5. I agree with you. You said it last week. Urban Meyer just reloads. They're like Alabama. I know they put a lot of guys in the NFL, but very surprised to see Ohio State at 8.5. And I don't buy the Tennessee at 10 for a second. One game goes wrong, that's it. You lose your bet. Not to mention all the fourth quarter melts they had. And I don't trust Butch Jones. Remember the Florida game? They're up 12 late. He kicks the extra point. You guessed it. They lost by 1.
You're still mad at that. I know you had a ticket on the money line.
The third grader knows you go for 2 in that situation.
I know.
It's horrible.
What about, look at this. Alabama lined in the same range as LSU, and both them below Tennessee when it comes to season wins. Of course, that's a lot of respect for the SEC West compared to the SEC East.
Pac-12's low, too. All the Pac-12 teams are low.
They're supposed to be low because the Pac-12 schedule, they play 9 conference games.
Correct. And a tough non-conference.
And it's a tough, exactly. Nobody's going through the Pac-12 undefeated.
Yep. Good points there. Good job by the fellas at the Golden Nugget. Up next, big game breakdown. We start with Game 3 in Toronto on Saturday. Get the brooms out. That's coming up on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Go to SBROdds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
All right, time for big game breakdown. As always, live odds. Go to sportsbookreview.com. Saturday night, Game 3. Cavs and the Raptors. Chris opened the game 5. 197.5. The Cavs favored on the road. That is 10 in a row now, trying to tie the record. 89 Lakers, 01 Lakers. And they would break the record if they sweep Toronto. They also would have 9 days off if they sweep Toronto before the NBA Finals start. Toronto tried to battle. They tried to hang in there. They didn't get any help from the officials. First half fouls 17-7. Free throw attempts 20-7 disparity in favor of Cleveland. And at one point it was 3-1 in foul shots for the Cavs. Lowry never got going in this one. He hasn't got going the entire series. He started 0 of 11 from 3 before he finally made his first three-pointer. Well, the Raptors were down 17 when he hit from downtown, Teddy.
Yeah, I mean, Toronto did come out with better energy. They did come out with better aggressiveness. It didn't really matter. And the refs really took a lot of that away. As you mentioned, that huge first half foul disparity, 17 fouls for the Raptors, only 7 for Cleveland before halftime. But of course, I mean, the game turned on that one run right before the break, where Cleveland, much like the Warriors, turned it on right before halftime against Oklahoma City in game number 2. Cleveland really turned it on before the break, and there was nothing. Toronto just didn't have any answers. Now, you talk about Lowry, I mean, the entire team falls when there's no spark for the leader. Did you hear what Mike Breen said in the
I sure did.
as he quote, on defense, Toronto was let go with a rope.
Yeah.
Where Cleveland was getting a lot of easy looks. And of course, Lowry, more turnovers than made shots in the series. And when he doesn't play well, his team doesn't play well around him. The question going forward, of course, is whether Kyrie Irving and the Cavs are being challenged enough. But for now, Pauly, I mean, that confidence level just keeps growing.
Yep, and they blew them out again. They only made 7 threes. And I think I've talked about this a little bit before, but they know they can't beat this team. And forget about winning the series. They're not going to beat them 4 out of 5. They're going to be lucky to get a game. So the first half and the first quarter, huge on Saturday. If they come out slow and Cleveland has a nice lead early in game 3, it's 1-2-3 Cancun. That's it. Collect the jerseys.
Remember what's happened in each of the first 2 series for Cleveland. In game 3, they won games 1 and game 2 at home. They went on the road for game 3, and game 3 both times against Detroit, against Atlanta. The Cavs came out and took care of business, winning straight up and against the spread. In fact, their only ATS losses this entire postseason have come in game 4s in leads in series where they have a 3-0 lead, and they were able to win those games, just didn't win them by margin. But Cleveland has taken care of business in this role. We know this series is a mismatch. It's been a mismatch from the get-go. Obviously, in theory, if Toronto's going to steal one, this is the game they're supposed to do it. But I'll tell you what, Pauly, not with my money.
Yep, I'm with you on that one. And I'd love to see history. I'd love to see them go sweep into the NBA Finals. Sunday night, Warriors Thunder, game 3. Warriors on the road, 2.5, 220 the total. OKC made all the hustle plays in game 1. Game 2, it was Golden State who out-hustled OKC, and they even beat them on the glass. Durant had 29. He was 11 of 18 shooting. But, Teddy, can you explain how that might have been a bad thing?
Well, see, the thing is that when Kevin Durant shoots, Oklahoma City scores. When the Warriors chase him off his shot and do something else with the ball, force him to do something else, Oklahoma City sucks. Or at least they did in game number 2. Durant, 13 turnovers versus only 4 assists for the first 2 games of the series. 8 turnovers and 1 assist in game 2. And he really wasn't a big factor. 6 rebounds, 1 steal, no block shots in more than 35 minutes of play. And of course, remember that sequence where he fouled Curry on the 3-point attempt, and then he drew a technical, and that really kind of helped break the game open in the third. Remember, Durant only got 1 shot attempt in the third quarter before hitting the bench as the Warriors made their run. When Golden State forced the ball out of his hands, they did a very good job. Kevin Durant didn't do good things with it, well, at least not in game number 2.
And you look at this graphic, game 1 and game 2. Rebounds, net turnovers, steals, and block shots. OKC has to sweep the 4 categories to win any game because there's no way to defend Curry. And this is from Billy Donovan, quote, Curry's faced, this is great too. This is for all these guys in the 80s back in my day. Donovan, Curry's faced every possible defense there is. He's faced trapping, he's faced switching, he's faced denials, he's faced it all. There are certain situations when you're going to get in a bind and you've got to communicate your way through those things. Tonight there were some times we let him get a little bit loose. We got to do a better job staying attached and connected and trading him off. when we need to trade him off, end quote. And at some point, I was surprised by what happened in game one, especially in the fourth quarter. But when he gets going, it's just an avalanche, and there's nothing you can do.
Well, that's just it. I mean, there's no defense that can be designed to stop the truly elite players in the NBA. You can hope to contain them. You can hope to make it more difficult for them. But ain't no way that OKC is going to stop Steph Curry. That being said, Toronto really could use a couple of days off. But, boy, this extra rest for Oklahoma City, I think it helps them a ton. There's a thought process out there, hey, after a blowout loss, it might be better to get right back on the court. I don't think so. They looked physically fatigued. They looked emotionally fatigued. Think of what they've been through. Winning at San Antonio, and winning the series clincher at home, and then going to Golden State, winning game one. And they were just gassed. They clearly were. All the hustle stats, we showed it in the graphic earlier, that all the hustle stats went to Golden State for game two. The extra rest can only benefit the home underdog in game number 3.
Yep. Maybe the most staggering stat I've come across in a while. Between 28 and 32 feet, Curry's better than Waiters is on layups. Unbelievable. All right, how about one tonight? Baseball. Good matchup. Cubs, Giants, Arrieta, Peavy. Cubs, $2, 6.5 the total. Simple fact of life. On the diamond, there's nothing more consistent than Arrieta celebrating after a win. Cubs 8-0 when he's on the mound, plus 51 in runs. 7-1 covering the run line. 21 straight regular season wins for Arrieta. Cubs are 19-2 covering the run line in those starts. But they're 3-5 in their last 8, Teddy.
Say that again, because that stat has to get repeated again.
Yeah, 21 straight regular season wins, and they're 19-2 covering the run line, and 8-0 this year, 7-1 covering the run line.
Now, that's a bet on pitcher, wouldn't you say?
Yes, right.
That merits a $2 price tag on the road.
Yeah.
But as we mentioned in the opener, I do have some concerns right now. Chicago is not hitting the baseball at all, just 3-5 their last 8. And Jake Peavy's something we got to talk about, because the Giants, you look at the Giants starters, the big three have been great, and then Peavy and Kane have not. Yet, when you look at the numbers, Jake Peavy's getting more strikeouts, he's getting more swings and misses than ever, but he's also getting hit harder. So that has him wondering what the hell's going on, and that takes us into some of these graphics. Look at the numbers, okay? His best heater's gone. So this is a guy who's pitched over 2,300 innings in his big league career. What does he do? He adapts with better breaking pitches. Look at this. The strikeouts per 9 inning, bang, best since 2009. The ground ball rate, bang, best since 2009. The swing strike percentage, bang, best since 2006 for Jake Peavy. So how does better stuff turn into 1-4 with a 7.43 ERA? It's real simple. Baseball not being kind. The batting average on balls in play, 372. That's ranked 101 out of 104 qualifying pitchers. The left on base percentage, 62.1. That ranks number 99 of 104 qualifying pitchers. Pauly, Jake Peavy is the only pitcher in the major leagues who's in the bottom 5 of both categories.
My God, great numbers. The Cubs look cheap at $2 with the Arrieta freight train. Here they come, though.
But the whole point of all this is that Peavy's not nearly as bad this year as his numbers indicate. He's been more unlucky than ungood. And let's not forget, the Giants working on an 8-game winning streak. They're playing pretty good baseball right now.
Yep, yeah, you're right. They're threatening to run away with the NL West, and I think they will, the way these teams behind them, especially the Dodgers, are playing. Up next, 5 great minutes with Brian Blessing. We'll preview the Preakness and the play of the day on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
With Preakness Stakes around the corner, research before you bet, only on SportsbookReview.com.
All right, back on SportsBit, Betting Insight today. Time for 5 great minutes with Brian Blessing. Preakness coming up on Saturday at Brian Blessing on Twitter. Let's talk about the weather. It's the big story, Brian. 100% chance of rain Saturday.
It's a huge story, Paul, and it's not just rain. They're talking about a half an inch of rain. The whole northeastern seaboard is just going to get walloped. So there's really nothing the track crew can do about this. It looks like a virtual certainty the track will be sloppy when this race goes off.
How does it affect Nyquist? Does he love the slop? And how does it affect some of these favorites in the Preakness coming up?
Well, I don't know that it necessarily impacts Nyquist. He's 8 for 8. One race that he did compete with moisture in the track was the Florida Derby down at Gulfstream Park, and he won the race. It was one of the slowest races he ever ran, and people kind of shot holes at that race. I think it was just a function of he went as fast as he needed to get the job done that day. I watched the Kentucky Derby. People think, oh, Exaggerator was gaining on Nyquist. No, I think he was throttled down by that point. I think they could have gone around 10 times, and Exaggerator never would have got by him.
You're the expert. You know your stuff. How odd is it that only 3 horses from the Derby are now coming back to race in the Preakness, and we have 8 new horses going out there?
It's a little odd. Usually, I would say on average, there are about 5 horses that would come back. But I think it speaks volumes about this is a relatively weak group of 3-year-olds from a depth perspective. And I think Nyquist is just, head and shoulders better than these other horses that just say, why come back and hurt the horse by going against a horse we have no chance to beat? Exaggerators raced against him 4 times and lost all 4. The sloppy track, some people are going to say, watch out for Exaggerator. His best race was the Santa Anita Derby in the slop. He may improve, but I don't know that it's enough to get by Nyquist.
Yeah. So that the exacta paid nothing at the Derby. I think it was the lowest exacta since 97. So let's try to find some value here. Baffert has a horse collected at 10-1. Any thoughts there? Any chance?
Well, the thing you look about Bob Baffert, he's won this race 6 times, so you'd be a fool to ignore the horse. That being said, he wins the Grade 3 Lexington at Keeneland, and he won it emphatically. But I mean, if this horse was so highly thought of, he'd have had him on the Derby trail. I think this one's in over his head.
The third choice, Pletcher has a horse at 8-1. What do you think?
This is absolutely the wild card in the race. The one problem, the post could be an issue, drawn the far outside post, number 11. But Stradivari's a son of Medaglia d'Oro, and his first race as a 3-year-old was at Keeneland. It was just an allowance race, but he was eye-popping, won by 14.5 lengths, which means nothing, in relation to who was he running against. But if this horse takes a step forward from that race, he's running figures that absolutely make him a contender. I think he may be the one that rounds out the exacta, to be honest with you, behind Nyquist.
Okay. You've been hearing a lot about a biting star. 5 straight wins, but 30-1. Seems like there could be some value there. Has the horse been running in some, Mickey Mouse races, or what's the problem why you see a horse that's hot but only 30-1?
30-1, it doesn't mean it can't happen, but I look at this horse, he's a need-to-lead type, and there's all kinds of speed in this race, and if he goes to clear on the front end, he's going to pack it in. He's going to have to go too fast. Bottom line is, Paul, he's been running races at Parks in Philadelphia and at Laurel Park. Caliber of competition he's faced just doesn't stack up here.
So you said this when we previewed the Derby, that Nyquist will win the Derby and the Preakness, but you think sudden breaking news will come back and ruin the Triple Crown bid in the Belmont?
Would be the one who could. I think Nyquist does win this race, and I think the Belmont's a cold exacta box with Nyquist and sudden breaking news, and that's one of the main reasons it took so long to get American Pharaoh and a Triple Crown winner. There's always the fresh horse laying in wait at the Belmont when the Derby winner's got to compete 3 times in 5 weeks. That being said, the exacta in the Derby came back $30. You're not going to hit a home run here, but if you think you have a really firm opinion that it's Nyquist with Exaggerator second, that exacta is probably going to pay maybe, let's say, $15, and it may pay $20 if Stradivari runs second. Well, hey, what's wrong with 6, 7, 8-1? If you just hammer if you do a nice exacta straight, Nyquist with the one you have conviction with in the second place, what's wrong with getting 5, 6-1 on your money?
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Good points there. Hey, great job as always. Thanks for 5 great minutes. We'll talk to you in a month when we preview the U.S. Open in golf.
Yep, and I would just say this. Maybe the smart bet, Paul, is bet Nyquist to win the Triple Crown at plus 250. He's going to be 3-5 on Saturday. He's going to be even money in the Belmont. If you're ever going to find Nyquist, it's bet him now to win the Triple Crown.
Excellent advice. At Brian Blessing on Twitter. We wrap it up next with the play of the day on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Find the best tennis odds for each Grand Slam event. Research before you bet on sportsbookreview.com.
I always enjoy those 5 great minute segments you have with Brian Blessing. Paul, he's got a lot of personality, but Enough with 5 great minutes, enough with horse racing. It's play of the day time. And let's go to that college football future board that we showed at the beginning of the show. We showed at the show? Yeah, we showed at the top of the show what we're going to show right now. The Houston Cougars lined at 9 wins, the under minus 150. Let's take Houston under 9 wins. They got to win 10 to beat us. We love Tom Herman. Greg Ward Jr. won about 5 games for this team by himself last year. Not going to be easy for him to do it again. You got Louisville, Cincinnati, and Memphis, all in revenge for losses by less than a field goal last year. Navy won't forget what happened to them last year. Instead of Vandy on their schedule in 2016, it's Oklahoma. And oh, by the way, the Cougars plus 21 in turnovers last year. That was number 2 in the country. Only San Diego State was better. That number can only go down. Houston Cougars under 9 wins. That's the Sports Bit play of the day for Friday.
Good breakdown there. Great week of shows. Thanks for all the comments on the videos at the bottom. And have a good weekend. We're back Monday to recap everything on Sports Bit. Betting and Insight today with Pauly and Teddy.